Welcome to Behind the Music, the Houston Chamber Choir's weekly podcast. I'm St. John Flynn. We're joined today by the Houston Chamber Choir's Managing Director, Mariam Khalili. Mariam, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, St. John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I just said that you are the Houston Chamber Choir's Managing Director. What does that mean? What is it that you do?
Oh my goodness. It means I do a lot of very fun things. I also handle some challenging issues from time to time, but it's an amazing position that allows me to be extremely creative and to support some incredible people. But if we're going to be technical, I manage the administrative side of the company, the operations side, and I manage the money. That's the biggest piece of this puzzle. I manage the money.
But you don't have to get up there and sing.
No. Oh, thank God, no.
Aside from all of the exciting financial planning, I get to play some really fun roles with our marketing and our special event planning. One of my favorite things that I get to do each year is play the role of art director when it comes to our photo shoot for the coming season. So I'll get to do everything from picking the location of the photo shoot, picking out the wardrobe for the singers, being there the day of, stylizing. I get to be very hands-on. And I get to work really closely with our photographer, Jeff Grass. And then when Jeff is done with creating the files for us, I can pick the best ones and do a final polishing of those photos, some additional Photoshop editing where I add in more fog, or I take out some electrical equipment that might have been hanging in the background, or I fix something on somebody's wardrobe. I get to really play the Photoshop wizard. And I also get to work with my creative team, our graphic designer, our amazing ladies on staff, to really curate the best experience that we can for our concerts and for our special events. Maybe that means we want the singers to be wearing themed attire for the concert, or we want to do a wardrobe change. So I will sit down and talk with Bob as well as our staff and determine what do we want the singers to look like when they're on stage. Do we want to have some creative lighting happening? Do we want to have a visual element in addition to them just standing there singing? Do we maybe want to have a projection screen behind them? It's so much that can be accomplished when you work for and with a nonprofit. And I just love being challenged and having little creative projects on the side of the more managerial type things.
When did you come to the choir?
I joined the choir in January 2018. And that seems like such a long time ago. I mean, of course, 2020 feels like 10 years. So almost 3 years ago, I guess, is what we're coming up to.
And what were you doing before that?
Oh, before that, I actually was executive director at Opera in the Heights for several years. And before that, I was an artist. And I dabbled in quite a few different things, and I also was a teacher. So I've had a very interesting life so far.
You said that you were an artist, and I know that photography is one of your strongest arts, so to speak.
Yes, I love photography. In my years before nonprofit work, I actually had a professional photography business. I started in 2006. And it started off with me working on my associate's degree at a community college, College of the Mainland in Texas City. And I just absolutely fell in love with being in the darkroom, with processing film, printing. I loved it. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to do something that you love every day? And, you know, being in college, I had different odd jobs, retail, you name it. And I kept thinking, I'd rather do this before I come to school every day. And so I started my own business, and it was really hard the first couple of years, but it was so rewarding. And my specialty really was weddings and lifestyle portraits. I just love the documentary style, capturing people in their element. And posing can be a lot of fun as well. But I really love just kind of being that fly on the wall and capturing people as they're experiencing life. It's such a it's a privilege to be able to go have someone invite you into their home or to their party. Maybe it's their child's first birthday and they're asking you to be there for that. You only get one chance to document life as it actually is happening. So in a way, it was a bit of a thrill for me. I guess you could say I am an adrenaline junkie, but not in the skydiving, motorcycle riding sense. I like being put into tricky situations and just pushing as hard as I can and offering something amazing. So at the end of the project, and photography really allowed me to do that. And I just look back on all the clients and their moments, I was able to provide something for them that they'll cherish forever. And it's very rewarding being a photographer.
And I bet you've got some great wedding stories.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Being a wedding photographer is challenging. And oftentimes there might not be a wedding coordinator depending on what type of wedding you're doing. And so the photographer ends up being the coordinator. So you have to be ready to tell people what to do. They may have been having a little too much fun and you have an agenda because the bride has given you a complete outline that you have to meet, check off all of those boxes at the end of the wedding evening. And you want her to be happy when she sees her previews. So you have to get a little bit bossy because people have too much fun sometimes, but it's thrilling. It really is. It's thrilling.
You also taught art for a while.
Yes, I did. Actually, one of my brides, she was a teacher at a private school near downtown Houston. And their art teacher that they had, I think, for decades, she retired and they had not been able to find a replacement art teacher. And so I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in photography. And I went and I applied for the job and they gave it to me. And that also was thrilling, a big adrenaline rush. I have to say, I only did that for 1 year. I taught kindergarten through 8th grade, and that was an extremely rewarding position. You learn so much about yourself as an educator when you're working with children, especially children of a wide age range. They all have different maturity levels and they have different needs. So I have so much more respect than I did before that. And I've always respected educators, but now I have a completely different perspective on what it means to walk into a classroom. And I think being a teacher not only allowed me to be more creative, because I had to build an entire curriculum plan for an entire school year for kindergarten through 8th grade. And that's very, very involved if you've never done it before. And I had to do it quite quickly. But I was able to be creative again with coming up with each of these different lesson plans for my students and being able to teach art. Oh, amazing, amazing. I felt like I got better as an artist with painting, with drawing, with charcoal. It was so much fun. After teaching for a year, I told myself, if I can do this, I can do anything, because it is such a hard job. Teachers are the smartest people that you could meet.
So how did you go from doing that, from photography and teaching art? How did you move into nonprofit management?
Well, that's such an interesting story. And so many people have asked me that, because they say, why are you doing all of these things, Mariam? If I could start back with teaching, I had wanted to continue teaching, but the school I was working at didn't look like they were going to have the funding necessary to have art the following year in the same capacity that they did have it. And I really was looking for something that would provide full time, that I could grow. And so I had to make the difficult decision to try to move on to something else. And I thought, I'm going to go back to working for myself again. really just pour everything I had back into my business. And I realized that I was lonely after doing that. After you spend so much time with children every day and their parents and enjoying the hugs and the high fives and just all of the social interaction that you get on a daily basis, it became really clear to me that my calling was no longer just being a photographer and, going to my event, but then spending a week or two at home, cranking out editing and working weird hours. And anybody that is a creative, a freelancer that's listening is probably laughing right now, because that's a little bit what it's like. You're somewhat of a vampire when you work for yourself as a photographer. And I was craving so much more. So an opportunity arose to work at Opera in the Heights as an operations manager. And one of the things on my bucket list actually was to work for a nonprofit, and I'd always wanted to work in the arts. After all of my experiences being a photographer and briefly having a short stint as a mixed media artist where I created art like the one hanging behind me, the piece back there.
Oh, nice.
I was always so fascinated with what nonprofits could do and how they could serve others in the community. And I thought, that's something I definitely want to do at some point in my life. And I had been applying for jobs around town, mostly with the mindset that I'm going to get my social interaction, I'm going to get funding to put back into my business. That was all I was thinking about, an entrepreneur. What can I do to fund my business and get better equipment, get more things to make my company better? And somebody they plucked my resume from another business that they did business consulting for and called me into Opera in the Heights. And this lady, she just completely changed my life by calling me in, because it was such a random phone call. I was not expecting to get a call. And she said, I got your resume from this other business, and I think you'd be a perfect fit. So why don't you come in if you have time? I'd love to talk to you. And so I went in, and everything changed in 2 hours time. And I look back on that and I think, wow, look at the path that I had taken. So I was hired as the operations manager at Opera in the Heights, and I loved it. It allowed me to have the social interaction that I was craving, but it also allowed me to be alone at my desk and be the introvert that I also very much enjoy being, and to work on more projects than I can even explain. And so it gave me the challenge. I just love being challenged. I love problem solving. And everything that I did in my photography business, marketing, budget planning, really working hard to sell myself as a photographer, I was able to apply all of those same skill sets and experiences to my new role with the opera. And within a year, I was promoted to executive director, which again, I never would have thought that I would be going down that path. But I absolutely loved it. I loved everything that I was doing.
So it was a sort of a natural progression for you to come to the chamber choir in 2018. And so much has happened to the choir in that time, hasn't it?
It has. It has been a whirlwind, an absolute whirlwind. The chamber choir, well, this year that we have now entered, the 2020-2021 season, is the 25th anniversary of the Houston Chamber Choir. And wow, so much hard work has gone into this organization when I was a very small child up until now. And to be a part of that is incredible. The last 3 years, though, I feel like everything has gone at warp speed. The choir has been phenomenal for a long time, but and Bob Simpson has been working so hard, 25 years. The choir is getting recognition now that it has deserved. It is being rewarded in so many different ways. And there's a lot that I could talk about with that. But most recently was being nominated for our first ever Grammy Award, and then winning the nomination just this past January. And getting Best Choral Performance on our latest album.
You weren't able to go to Los Angeles for the Grammy Awards because you have a young daughter who was only a few months old at that point. So recount for us what your Grammy experience was like.
Oh my gosh, my Grammy experience was, well, I had a baby in November of 2019. And so when you're pregnant and when you have a baby, you're a little bit more emotional than the average person to begin with. The year prior to her, or to all of 2019, was the year that we released our album, the complete Duraflame, the complete choral works. And we worked so hard last spring to push this album, to get it out there, for people to know about it, to listen to it, to fall in love with it. And so right when I had my daughter, I think it was the same week, if I'm remembering correctly, is when we received the nomination. And that was just, oh my gosh, we've been nominated for a Grammy. My phone started blowing up. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning and people were waking up, they were going to work, and the list of all the nominees had been updated on the Grammy website, and I knew something was different. I could feel it. And sure enough, Kelly Wallace, one of our sopranos, left me this hysterical message: Mariam, we got the Grammy nomination. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. And, you know, she knew that I was, you know, having just had a baby, but it was so emotional. I just broke down in tears at that moment, because it was like a wave of relief that, oh my gosh, we got to this point, and it felt so good. And to hear the joy in Kelly's voice, being the first person to tell me this amazing news, and even though it was through a voicemail, because I didn't answer the phone, I wasn't feeling very well, to get that kind of voicemail was just, it was incredible. I may even still have it saved because it's so special. So that was the first part. And then the second part was in January, when everyone got to go. Bob and some of the singers and his wife Mariana got to go to California to be on the Grammy stage, and I didn't get to go, so I was a little sad. But having a 2-month-old, she was definitely my top priority. But it was so special to be able to watch the recording and to see that, you know, everyone is on stage. They look so beautiful. Look at them walking down the aisle. And then for Bob to give an acknowledgement of me on that stage meant so much.
I'm honored to accept this award on behalf of the musicians of the Houston Chamber Choir and our wonderful staff led by Mariam Khalili, and our board of directors chaired by Rick Kellogg, and our steadfast and generous donors.
My whole family, they were so proud to know that I had been a small part of that Grammy Award. It's just something that I still think about almost in disbelief.
How has winning the Grammy affected the choir? What's it been like since January?
It has been one of the best things I think that could happen to our organization. Just, it's validation to know, you know, we've been working so hard. The singers pour everything into what they're doing. And Bob, oh my gosh, he's the wizard behind all of this. Seriously, he's like a magician. He can put voices together, just make everything is beautiful. It's heavenly. So to get that Grammy, really, it feels like, yes, this is where we should be. And for the singers who have been with the choir, some of them, you know, 15 or more years, it really is the best pat on the back that they could ask for, and all the hard work that they've done. But aside from the feel good, from a marketing standpoint, we're finally on the map. You know, there are choral ensembles around the world that are now aware of us, people who love choral music, fans of choral music that now are aware of us, that maybe weren't so aware before. And that is really an amazing feeling to know, okay, we're getting more traffic to our website than we ever have. And that's before, we started this amazing podcast that I never thought I would be a guest on, which also helps with bringing traffic. But the Grammy really has changed everything. And in addition to that, we also were asked to come to the World Symposium on Choral Music, which is also a very prestigious event that happens every 3 years. It was to take place in New Zealand actually this past summer and was canceled because of the pandemic. But that as well, to happen in the same year as winning the Grammy, has just sort of catapulted us into more of a spotlight and brought more recognition to all of the hard work that these singers and that Bob have been putting forth for quite a long time.
You mentioned the pandemic, and what has been the impact of the sort of the lockdown on the choir? Because it's an organization that thrives on performance and being on a stage with an audience. How have you been able to negotiate the continued existence of the choir?
It's been, gosh, I think everybody on the planet has somewhat of a similar feeling. So this is relatable, but it was devastating when we first had to close back in March. We still had 2 concerts that we were very much looking forward to. We had a big gala that we were very much looking forward to. And then we had our trip to New Zealand to perform and to meet all of these other incredible choral ensembles from around the world. So I would say 2019 started with the Grammy Award at the highest of highs. And then just a few months later, we went to the lowest of lows. So it was traumatic. I think that's the best word to say, is traumatic. And with something happening out in the world that we don't have a lot of information on, especially in the beginning, it's evolving very quickly. You don't know what's going on. You just have to stop everything, right? And singing stopped everywhere. That it is, not unique to just us, but everywhere singing stopped. And so singers especially, I know, have really felt a level of pain inside that is different than what the average person who's not a performing artist might have felt. If you're making your living as a singer and you're now told you cannot use your voice anymore and you have to be inside and alone, and part of being a choral musician means that you have great chemistry with other people and you excel when you are with other people and you make beautiful things with other people, and now you can't do that. It's traumatic. So I'm very happy to say that our choir has been very strong and they've been able to get through all of this. And we are now in the process of making some very beautiful music to share with the rest of the world. It's been a long time coming, but we've needed to do the research. We've needed to look at what's the safest way to continue performing and to bring our choir together and to make music again. And we finally found that perfect set of, we've got the perfect recipe for success at this point. And we've begun the process of preparing to launch a new season for our patrons to enjoy. It's very exciting.
I saw on Facebook, I think, earlier this week, the choir's first rehearsal for the upcoming season, and they were all socially distanced and in a parking garage outdoors.
So the parking garage idea is actually, I will take credit for that. Bob and I were constantly looking at the latest studies coming out of various universities and research institutions. And one of the guidelines was not to sing for more than 30 minutes at a time. And, if you can be outdoors. And so our office is downtown inside of Christ Church Cathedral. And they've got a very nice parking garage right next to our office building. And so I said, okay, so we'll just rehearse on the top floor for 30 minutes and you'll all get your own parking space. And then we'll go down a level to the next parking, floor, and you'll have another 30 minutes in your own parking space. And we'll just do that in 30-minute increments as needed. And so I asked the choir, what do you think? And they said, let's do it. We would love to do that. Let's do it. And, I have to laugh because never in a million years would I have thought we'd be in a parking garage conducting rehearsals, but it's working. And what a magical moment on the 25th anniversary to go out and do something historic like that, to come together after being away for so long in such a unique and strange way.
But it's great to have the team back together again.
Yeah, it is. And I know I wasn't at the rehearsal, but I've gotten feedback and photos to see just how special it was for everybody that was there. And in addition to their parking spaces, they all have special singers masks that allow for more room under the mask. So everyone is, they're socially distanced. We're taking all of the precautions that are being put forth in various guidelines that we're looking at. And it's exciting. It's very exciting.
And is this how things are going to be moving forward?
For the time being, yes. Until local guidelines say that we can begin to lift certain restrictions, yes. But this is also very personal for the choir members. Every decision that I make is based on them. So even though we might have changes to local regulations, if a choir member says, I'm not comfortable, then I want to meet those needs for them. Bob wants to meet those needs. Our board does. So this really, how rehearsals change will depend on guidelines, numbers, and then personal preferences. Happy choir singers are always better choir singers.
I think one of the great things about singers is that because their voice is their instrument, they are very much used to taking care of themselves, taking care of their bodies, and they probably know quicker than most when they're not feeling 100%.
Yeah, they're very in tune with their bodies, and that's a very, very good thing. In addition, though, to them being aware of what they're doing, even if they are feeling good, before we bring them closer together, they'll go through testing. We have temperature checks. So all of the precautions are in place. So even if somebody does feel good, we'll have a really good understanding of where everybody sits health-wise. But yeah, they're all taking such good care of themselves and just working really hard. And our singers, this isn't the only thing that they do. A lot of them are educators. They are working really hard at school and with their various school districts to make sure that they're providing a safe environment for their students and for themselves. So it's really just, this year is a big change for our choir in so many ways.
What are you learning about the choir because of COVID-19? Having to, throw plans out the window and start all over again. What are you learning about the choir?
That they are extremely patient. They are resilient. They're giving. I mean, they're dedicated people. Again, most of them are educators. So that should tell you a lot about them right there. They love people and they care about others, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to do the very best that they can. They make a lot of sacrifices. This whole pandemic has been really difficult because it's had to reshape the way that they do everything. Yes, professional choral ensembles like ours we've had to change things, but so do schools and classrooms. So it's been really hard on the teachers, from all backgrounds, not just music educators, but all teachers. And, just seeing and hearing the day-to-day challenges that they're having to overcome, the adjustments that they're having to make to meet guidelines that are being put forth. It's really, it's a tough position for them to be in. And so that's why it's really even more important that we're able to provide an environment for them to get back to making music, because that's medicine for them. It's good for their hearts and their souls, and it brings them joy. And in turn, it brings the community joy. So they've been through quite a lot. And I think we should all be so proud of anybody that's working in education or music education right now.
Yes, they've already achieved sainthood just by being educated.
Basically, yeah, basically.
Let's talk a little bit about your own musical experiences. What role has music played in your life, Mariam?
Music has been life-changing for me. When I was a little girl, my two older brothers were in the band program. And I just have to say, Dickinson, Texas, Go Gator Band, amazing, the best band in the land. Back when I was a kid, we were a class 4A, and we were a small class 4A, which I'm not even sure if that really applies anymore. I know they've changed designations, but we were a smaller band, but we would go to the state competition every year and we would slay. We'd get first. And I was that little cheerleader. I would be jumping up and down in the stands, so excited. I adored those high school kids. To me, they were the cool kids and they were the heroes, and I wanted to be just like them. And it's so funny, but I adored what they were doing. And that was when I fell in love with classical music and band music. It became my goal at that point to be in band. And I wanted to do everything that they were doing. So I did. When I finally was the right age, I was 11, I tried out for the band program and I was put on bassoon. It wasn't my first choice, play saxophone, but my older brother played bassoon. And so the band director had been thinking, well, Mariam should be on bassoon too. So, I reluctantly did it, but I'm so glad that I went that route, because bassoon is a challenging instrument. And I love the sound of a bassoon. It is beautiful. Yes. Mm-hmm. Anytime I hear classical music, whether it's a commercial or in a movie, and I hear a bassoon, I freak out. It gives me chills all over, because it brings up something inside of me that from my past that just feels good. I adored the bassoon. And I picked up some oboe as well for a little while in high school, which is always so much easier to pick up a second instrument once you understand everything that you're doing with breathing and fingerings and embouchure. So I loved band. It was everything. And the community that I had with the people that I was in band with, they became like my family. You're practicing every day after school for 2 to 3 hours. You're practicing on Friday mornings at 6 o'clock in the morning before school starts. And then you're going to the football game immediately after school with these people. And then on Saturdays, you're going to an all-day competition with them. So they really do become your family. And so music from a very early age shaped my whole personality, who I am, what I love, my discipline, for sure. You didn't want to mess up. I was in drumline in high school because you can't march with a bassoon typically. I know some bands have marched bassoons, but our school did not. And so I was in the pit for a little while, and then I graduated to bass drum. And you can't be late. You can't make faces. You can't be silly. You have to be at attention. It's kind of a military style. And so the discipline that I got from being in band and knowing I was going to have to take off my bass drum and run laps around the football field and then do push-ups on a gravel parking lot, that was a lot of motivation to stay in line and do a good job. And gosh, some of the best years of my life were marching on that field with the bass drum.
It's interesting that you find yourself at the Houston Chamber Choir now, because obviously your experience of music is very much tied to a sense of community.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's funny because when I was younger and I was in bands, I loved classical music, but I didn't really pay much attention to choir. I knew that we had a choir. I was in choir in elementary school and I loved that. I think most children love singing. And so it was a natural progression to go from singing to an instrument for me. But it wasn't until I started working for the opera that I really fell in love with the human voice and just really experienced what the human voice can do. I never had wanted to go to an opera or a vocal performance before. And so when I transitioned from the opera to the chamber choir, I thought, what is it going to be like working with an ensemble where we don't have costumes and lighting and all of that technical side of things, and where we don't really have soloists, because that's one of the big differences between a choral ensemble and an opera is you have these characters that are belting out these roles. And I was so pleasantly surprised. You're in the right place when you get goosebumps and you feel tingles all over your body. And the singers in the Houston Chamber Choir have this way of just, I can't even, just talking about it right now is giving me the little tingles. It's powerful when you have those voices come together and Bob can do what he does with them. It's an emotional experience. And so it feels so good to be a part of this ensemble and supporting it and giving other people the opportunity to experience what I experience when I go to a rehearsal. It's very special. And it's different than what my path was, my past as a child, but it's so beautiful. Music is beautiful in any form, I think.
So what music do you like to listen to?
Oh my goodness. I listen to so many different things, and I have some friends that they get so irked with me, they're annoyed because they say, well, what, have you heard of this band? And I'll say, I don't know. I don't think I have. And so they'll turn it on. I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. And I'm terrible with names. I'm just terrible with names, but I know when I hear something, I'm like, oh yeah, I do love that. I love a lot. I love, the classic stuff, Frank Sinatra. I love, there's some country music that I really enjoy, Johnny Cash. I love the Eagles. I love Journey. There's some, more indie type groups, Empire of the Sun. I just love their music. There's something about it when it comes on, I just feel like I have to start dancing. It's very, uplifting and funky. And then, of course, classical music. I love music that has harpsichord. I know, right? You would think it's not for everyone, but I love certain pieces that have harpsichord. When I was in high school, we played music by the title of Terpsichore and a series of dance type pieces. And I had quite a few solos, very beautiful music for bassoon, but we had harpsichord that was in part of that. And then again, when I, got into opera, I loved the operas that had the harpsichord that sort of mirrored what the singers would say. It's sort of like it's an instrument that's whispering in a way. And I love soundtracks from movies, classical music soundtracks. Those are just, if you want to be in a sad mood, you can get some really good classical music soundtracks and just nerd out on like, it's cloudy outside, I don't feel good, I just need some music that matches my mood. But it's just so moving and so beautiful. There have been times where I've had Pandora playing in the office and I'm trying to work, I'm focusing on writing a grant, and Bob will come in, he's like, wow, that's deep piano. And it's kind of sad. Are you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm focusing. I don't need anything upbeat right now. I'm trying to get into the trenches here. So yeah, I love all different types of music. It really just depends on my mood, what kind of mood I want to have. If I'm not, if I know I have a lot that I have to get done and I want a pick me up, music, it's the best medicine. Just pick something that you know will get you moving and turn it on. It's so great.
Before we go, I wonder if I can press you to give us a few more hints as to what the 2020-2021 Houston Chamber Choir season might have in store.
Well, I can tell you that this year we have the very unique opportunity to present to a global audience. Our concerts are all going to be virtual, so we won't have anybody in person unless things just, dramatically change after the new year. But right now, I'm a good business person. I am planning for a virtual season, and it's very, very exciting. You'll be able to watch from home with your loved ones or by yourself if you choose. And we're going to have 5 concerts. A lot of time and effort has gone into this, and it's going to be, I think, very entertaining, something that you're going to enjoy watching. And it's nothing like anything that we've ever done before. This is brand new stuff for the chamber choir, the way that we're going to be presenting these concerts. And so I'm excited for it to all come together. We're working really hard right now to get all those puzzle pieces together. And like you said earlier, the rehearsals started. So just have to wait, check out our website very soon.
Well, I know it's been tough this year for you as an organization, and congratulations on persevering and getting something in place. Best wishes as the new season begins. Stay strong, and thank you very much for joining us on Behind the Music. It's great to learn so much more about you.
Thank you so much, St. John. It's been so much fun to be here.
And thank you to everybody who supports the Houston Chamber Choir, patrons, sponsors, and audience members. Thank you very much. I'm St. John Flynn, and this is Behind the Music.
The Houston Chamber Choirs with One Accord is your one-stop shop for choral joy. If you enjoyed this podcast, help us to continue our mission to grow the esteem and appreciation of choral music by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to our content. As a 501c3 nonprofit, support from listeners like you allows us to continue to create new and exciting programming. For more information about us and how you can support our work, please visit HoustonChamberChoir.org/give.